All right, everybody, gather around. The Candyman is here. Now, what kind of candy you want? Sweet chocolate?
He's boozy, he's woozy, but he's not loosey. It's Danny Baker's on the line. Evening, Danny.
Hey, Ian, at last. Here we go. This is... It's the showdown the public have been begging for, huh?
Now, how drunk are you this evening, sir?
I'm okay. I had a couple of free in the garden earlier.
Yes.
So, I'm just about to start on grappa, so this might get interesting. Do I love the grappa. So few people drink it, and it is...
I don't know, I haven't had a drink for 12 years. I don't know what grappa is. I stopped before I got to the grappa. It sounds vicious.
Yeah, a lot of people, when you do it, they say, well, okay, you know. I'm not one of those who ever bumps chests and say, can you drink this? I don't drink spirits at all. But comes a time when you've had enough wine, you think, yeah, the grappa rounds it off nicely. People have been drinking it for 2,000 years. It's absolutely fine. I'm happy to hear you've stopped, because I like that too. I really do think that's it's an addictive thing, but if you've not got that addictive gene, it's a beautiful thing.
What's the most expensive booze you've ever bought? I tell you why, because when I went years and years ago, I went to the Maldives. When I was getting telly money, right, I went to the Maldives with a girlfriend, and it was the most expensive holiday ever, ridiculous. And the wine menu came round, and there was a bottle of wine that was from 1964, and I thought, a hard day's night.
Beautiful.
And I bought it. It was $600.
Well, I have a good vintner who says, this is what you like, this is what you like, and that's all good. I'm not one of those who says, oh, look, like 11 o'clock at night when everyone's gone, says to everyone, this is the good stuff.
Yes.
I know what good wine is, but I have no eye for it, so my vintner is good. But I was once away with Chris Evans in New York, and there was something on the menu that was £900. I see your 600 and raise it to £900 a bottle.
But was it any good?
But we all looked at each other. This is pretty good, and we looked at it. I said, but if it would have been served this up at $29.99, I do think there's such a good thing as good wine. But once it goes past, £100 a bottle.
Yes.
How do you know? I mean, but it's like stamp collecting or, dare I say, LP collecting. If you're not in the cognoscenti, why would you know? But I think there's a ceiling to it. Certainly there is. But I genuinely am quite drunk talking to you now. I really am.
What is the last record you bought?
The last record, let me look, because I keep them at the side of me here. I've got into quadraphonic records recently, Ian.
Have you got a quadraphonic setup? Can you?
No, you don't need to. Here's the thing, and I don't know if your audience are interested in this, but
who cares about those losers?
I've got here Jackson Brown's "Late for the Sky," which is one of the greatest records ever made. David Gates' first album. There's behind that is Jethro Tull's Aqualung. They sound different. And whatever your favourite album is, if you are someone from the early 70s, they put out so many records in quadraphonic that you don't need to have quadraphonic for. But if you play them on a stereophonic setup, they sound very, very different. They surprise you. Jackson Brown's "Late for the Sky," suddenly there's an acoustic guitar. There's an organ you've never heard before. And so I would urge people to go to quadraphonic, not because the setup exists, but they were mixed so differently, they're very surprising. And
back to mono, Danny, back to mono.
It is a bit like that. It's like saying, all I want is to hear those records again, and you can hear them differently. So I've been buying a lot of quadraphonic records recently, and those are the most recent ones. Apart from, I can see here, Gentle Giants, The Power and the Glory I bought as well.
I have got my first radio appearance and my first TV appearance, were because of you. Years and years ago, when you were on, I guess it was GLR back then, when it was you, Chris Evans and Chris Morris. What a lineup.
And Chris Evans,
Yeah, what a lineup. Everyone, at the peak of their power, all these young bucks doing all this stuff. And you were giving away a David Essex Greatest Hits. And my mum wanted to win it, so I said, I'll phone up and I'll win one for you. And I got through, and I bottled it. You went, right, we've got Ian on the line from Slough, and I went,
no.
Oh, just get me mum, hang on.
But did you get the album? No?
Yes, we got the album, yes.
Oh, good.
Mum, sweet talk to you.
See, Ian, those were the days before the BBC was caught with its hand in the till.
Yes.
When you could give things away. The BBC don't do that anymore. They don't give holidays away. They don't, because, Weasel suddenly said, oh, they're keeping some of it for themselves. But that's the way it works. The BBC were given 10 box sets, let's say.
Yeah.
So, as you know now, in the office you say, you have one, we'll give 5 away.
Of course.
So still the public get 5 of them.
Yep.
All right. The office get 5 of them. Nobody loses, but no. Weasels have to say, oh, they didn't give all of them away. Who's the loser? We got caught with our fingers in the till. Now, are you happy? You don't get any tickets to concerts. You don't get any box sets. You don't get any of albums of David Essex. Are you happy now? And I would love to give things away.
Yeah.
Just let us keep what is ours. It's like the mafia.
It was the weird thing going from the BBC, where I was for 4 years, and then they shafted me, and then coming to commercial, and I suddenly was reminded of all this freedom that we had, that we could give stuff away.
Give stuff away,
yeah.
All right. The BBC, in some respects, is like the mafia, but it looks after the community. We take it, we wet our beak, we wash our hands, but that's fine. But now, if the BBC can't say, here's Springsteen tickets, because somebody might say, I bet you got 4 pairs of them and you gave them to your staff. Yeah. Yes, we did.
Yes.
So what? So what? And now nobody gets Springsteen tickets. Are you happy now?
The BBC is weird, right? I love it, and I was so proud when I worked for the BBC. I was so proud to have that BBC badge.
As you should be. And you and I am, by the skin of my teeth, still employed by them. You, shamefully, as we all know, are not, but we've shared that.
And it's the same thing that I know that you've had, where it was, for want of a better word, it was the Suits who they wrote a report on when they got rid of me, and they're saying, we don't think this style of show would generate many phone calls. Hang on a minute, I've been doing it for years.
Yeah, but the fact is that it does.
Yeah.
Ian, the fact that it does is the greatest threat to them. If that was genuine, if people really thought, well, what you do is not fitting it, but the fact that it does is the biggest threat to him, because if you go through media school, as they all do, you come out with your media degree and it says this is how things work, and then some pirate turns up and turns everything upside down, then you say, well, what are we all here for? Because if you only need, as I know you do, 2 other people, maybe 1 other person to get the show on the air, answer the phones, and you can say, I'm self-contained. But that's a great, great threat to people.
Oh, they were terrified. At one of the stations, 10 minutes, I got a new boss. 10 minutes before the show was on, I'd say, right, I'm going to go down to the studio. What's on the show today, Ian? I'm not sure yet.
Exactly.
And she couldn't handle it.
But you say this, people think, oh my God, they're complaining because their love is or whatever it is. But we've got no choice.
No.
Because the generic doesn't interest us. I could not ever go on the air and say, what's your most embarrassing moment? Where are you from? Because it's called conversation, it's called curiosity, but that, we've both got ourselves into enough trouble with all this, but it is not. Radio is not generic. Radio is not like television. Radio is not something you can do. You can be learned. You're either any good at it or you ain't. And I am 1 2-hour radio show away from not being in radio at all. I have got every single award you get. They still keep giving it to me, but I am 1 slender show away from not being in radio at all.
This is the thing I don't get, and I don't want to dwell too much on it because I want to celebrate, the good stuff that's going on. But
what's that?
I've cards on the table. I've nicked loads of stuff from you, right? And no, totally. And you are, to me, the greatest broadcaster in this country.
Bless you.
And I mean that. And I do not understand why you've only got 2 hours on 5 Live.
Well, I do, and you can say, and say, but I actually do understand what it is, and that's even more bleak, as you do, because, if you come on and say, hey, folks, let's talk about, like tonight, what's happening with the government and all that, but it's such a relief not to do that.
Yeah.
But also, I say to an audience, don't be sort of talk like this as well. But I would not pretend it's a mystery why we are marginalised, and I won't pretend I'm a victim of it, and I don't dwell on it because I've got other, irons in the fire. But the idea that we've got this kind of a generic, homogeneised radio going on is the same as telly now. I mean, it's not a free medium, and that's fine. But I will not stand here and say, I should get more radio time. But by the same token, I should get more radio time. Let me put that another way. I should get loads more radio time.
Danny, what do you think of Brexit, and what are your favourite sweets from the 70s? You think, see, it's easy, and that will get the phones up.
Then you got yourself some radio. But I know if I was going through the dial, I've said this a few times, Ian, but my greatest template for any kind of broadcasting, and I think what any audience want is when I used to watch TV and when I used to listen to radio, I used to think, do something that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Not this modern thing about we're here for you. We're your radio station. We say what you want. You tell us what to. Well, how are you earning your corn? Yeah. And I always talk. There was a clip of Buster Keaton describing a clip in. I think it's still Steamboat Bill Jr. when a hurricane is coming to town, and he said, your only duty is to outthink an audience and then double-cross them.
Beautiful.
So they think, I wouldn't have thought of that. And there's a scene in that when he's literally moving his house across town because there's a hurricane coming.
Yeah.
And everyone's being told to get across town. And so he's got his house literally on a flatback truck behind his car driving across town. And he's driving across town, getting his house out the way of this hurricane. And he stops his car falters as the house is going across a railway line. And he looks at the camera, and there's a train coming. And he thinks, oh, God, there's a train coming towards my house. And Buster Keaton's voice in the voiceover on this said, I just wanted to double-cross the audience. So you can see the train coming, getting closer and closer, this plume of smoke. And he gets out of his car, and he pushes the house, which is on a flatback truck, and it won't move. And he gets in the car again, and he turns the ignition, and he gets back, and he pushes the house, and the train is getting closer and closer. And one last time, he gets back in the car, and he turns the ignition, and he moves the car just as the train gets there, as they used to in the silent movie days, just as the train, and he moves his house inches away from when the train goes through shot. And he jumps out of his car, and he mops his brow, and he looks at camera, and just at that point, another train from the other side of camera comes in and goes smash and smashes his house.
Beautiful.
The train you haven't seen. And he says, the only duty you have is to let the audience outthink you, then double-cross them. Be better than, anyone would think you would be.
I hate
that's all you got to do on the radio.
I always get these talks from managers, not from here. Yeah, it will happen, but not from here yet. Where it's, it will, where it's, try not to be exclusive. Make it inclusive. So if someone just turns on in the radio, in their car, they can pick it up straight away. I agree. I want people to work at it.
No, it's not work at it, and it's not asking the audience to jump through hoops. But if I'm driving along there, as a lot of your audience are at this time of night, and if I hear someone say, so what do you think about Brexit? What do you think about what's been said today about? That is generic.
Yeah.
The generic don't work. But if you say to someone, did your grandmother ever have a surprising record in her collection? The audience will lean forward to the radio, and it doesn't matter if because all the radio management care about is if all the lines are lighting up.
Yeah.
But if you put a question like that out, and one phone call comes in, and someone goes, "You were asking if your grandmother had a surprising record in your record collection," and they talk about it, everyone leans forward. You've got to put out about 20 subjects to get that. But if you get one on each rather than 100 on these boring subjects that every radio show puts out and everyone is dependent on, that is the way forward. Because I've done the most, I pride myself on the most unlikely subjects. The most unlikely subjects. My mind is a blank now. But if you get one person ringing on that rather than 1,000 people ringing on, what do you think about Nigel Farage? An audience will lean forward and stick with you.
Where do you stand on Jerry Lewis?
I love Jerry Lewis. I think Jerry Lewis, he's flawed, but I love Jerry Lewis. And as you know, I've tweeted links on Jerry Lewis, lyrics on Jerry Lewis.
Actually, here comes the grapper.
I could tweet lyrics on Jerry Lewis. One of the first albums we ever had was Jerry Just Sings in Our House.
Yeah.
I did that to cover up.
Well done.
I'm a little bit drunk. But but I love Jerry Lewis. I think Jerry Lewis is a very, very funny man.
I've just started reading The King of Comedy, The Life and Art of Jerry Lewis, and I remember it's funny because I'd not really thought about it for years. And then someone released about 30 minutes of The Day the Clown Cried.
Yeah, but a lot of people use it as a stick.
Oh no, exactly. But I remember it just dawned on me as a kid. I love those Jerry Lewis films.
Of course.
The Nutty Professor.
Why wouldn't you? Because
Artists and Models, all of that.
He thought with Frank Tashlin, who directed a lot of those early films, like a cartoon. Yeah. So if Jerry Lewis has been lifting heavy weights all day, he'll cut to him in bed with very long arms. He's been lifting weights, scratching his foot. That's just funny. But that whole American Borscht Belt humour, it didn't really translate over here, and now we're kind of getting it through Seinfeld and everything else. All right.
Now we're getting it through Seinfeld. That's 20 years ago.
20 years ago. But even so, no, Jerry Lewis is a very, very, very funny person, and he's 92, and over here he'd have been Sir Jerry Lewis by now.
Best Beach Boys song.
Oh Christ!
I'm making you work tonight.
One minute. Let me look. For the moment. Let me look. I'm getting up my iTunes now.
Yeah.
I've got Beach Boys early, Beach Boys mid, Beach Boys. I really have. So let me look. I'm going to say at the moment.
Yeah.
It's You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone.
Oh, mate, yes.
But it's a song I never liked first time round. I've got it in its picture sleeve first time round, and I thought they'd lost their way, and I saw them at the Crystal Palace Bowl.
You saw that concert?
Yeah.
You know there's clips of that on YouTube?
Yeah, you're talking to me now. Yes, of course I saw them there. But You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone.
Yep.
And I also probably will go with Steamboat as well from Holland. Because I now realise, as my son first told me, the best Beach Boys period is 1971 to 1973. And he's probably right.
Yeah, I would say 68 to 72. But yes, it's that kind of stuff. You know, bits of the Crystal Palace gig is on YouTube. You know that. You spend all your time on YouTube.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
Do you know the weird thing about that thing you can't see on there? It rained all day.
Yeah.
It rained all day. And the Beach Boys were about 45 to 50 minutes coming on late, and they got booed when they come, and everyone was booing. I couldn't bear it. Everyone was booing, because the Beach Boys could not have been less hip in those days.
Yeah.
They came on stage, and everyone booed, and I thought... Anyway, they started with... the first song they did was... Not California Girls, they did Wouldn't It Be Nice?
Yeah.
And as they went... I swear to God... The sun came out.
Beautiful.
And everyone
Magic.
stood up. And I'm not remembering that. That actually happened.
Yeah.
And they won the audience over from the intro on that. I was there, totally there.
I love them. I love the Beach Boys because they're so flawed, because they have taken so many missteps. That's what makes them wonderful.
That's the thing. Any bands that, you and I like and anyone likes, everyone says, how about, and it's like McCartney. People say, the Frog Chorus, which was a song written for children, which was spectacularly successful for children.
Which is also magnificent.
But you can't put that against Lennon's, mother, because everything Lennon did after, Plastic Ono Band wasn't very good.
Yeah.
It wasn't sometime in New York City, and all them albums out there weren't very good. But people like to think that, and so they'll always dredge up the weakest link of it, and something like, and that is not McCartney's weakest link, but people love to do that. Oh, he made that. Well, okay,
I like do you know the Memory Almost Full album by Paul McCartney? That's a cracking album, about 2004. It's brilliant.
McCartney's not trading on past glory.
No.
He's making great albums after album after album.
Yeah.
But even if you shouldn't have to put the Beatles against each other, it's a no-brainer. Why people want to go for this specious concept of cool? Oh no, Lennon was cool. Yeah. When was the last time you played, Bleeding, the Mind Games? When was the last time you played sometime in New York City? Because they're not very good.
Yeah.
McCartney just kept knocking them out, and there's plenty on them. But that is not the argument, of course. You shouldn't put Lennon against McCartney, but people somehow do.
I watched the George Harrison doc again, the Scorsese thing the other day.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it since it came out. I was in tears. Oh,
yeah,
God.
But George's back catalogue is very thin.
Oh, it's patchy, definitely. It starts off well, and then it takes quite a steep nosedive.
Yeah, George and Ringo are going neck and neck in the ones who've got superfluous albums. They have. I mean, you know,
Sentimental
they really
Journey.
have. And I think George has given a lot of... The stuff he did with the Beatles is really good. I mean, Don't Bother Me and all that stuff is really good. But when he left the Beatles, I still don't really buy... of All Things Must Pass. It's not a treble album. It really ain't
there's one side that's the jam is a waste.
And it's great, and he's George and all that. And by the way, I met all the Beatles.
Oh, come on!
You can ask me another time about when I met all the Beatles. Whenever I do the thing about, I've got a great thing. I've got a great thing in, which I always instigate. Let's play a game of shake this hand, because this hand shook the hand of... Now, if I played it with you and I said, give me your hand, who did that hand shake the hand of? Who would you say?
Well, it's, Paul McCartney, obviously.
Well, OK, Paul McCartney. Well, I'd say Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr and George Harrison. Right? Or I could say Bob Hope, or I could say Muhammad Ali, or I could...
Michael Jackson, of course.
Michael Jackson, yes, I could do all... So, you know, I don't want to make it look like I'm showboating here.
No, but...
But that is a great game to play. But certainly, if we had to choose one, I could take... But if you did your Paul McCartney against my John Lennon, you would win.
Yeah, OK.
You would win.
OK. When is the third book coming out?
By the way, I've also got Peter Talk, Mickey Dolenz, Mike Nesmith, and David
When did
Jones.
you meet Nesmith?
Oh, man, I'm old, man. Oh, man, you're talking to me now. I'm 60 next year. I've been around a very long time.
I suppose so.
A very long time. Yeah, of course I have.
When's the third book coming out? Because I love the book. I told you, my mum nearly died. My mum.
Hang on.
You know.
I've got a red light flashing here from my publisher. Yes, that's a question he wants to know.
My mum was very ill, and she went into hospital. Right, she got rushed in, and I thought there was nothing that badly wrong. And the doctor took me to one side and said, "Your mum's probably going to die." I was like,
Jesus!
I know it was terrible. They fixed her. The NHS, wonderful. They fixed her and saved her.
They fixed me as well.
I was thinking it was going to be the last time I was going to see her. I said, "Mum, what do you mean to bring into the hospital?" "Oh, can you bring that Danny Baker book in, please, and read it to me?"
Oh, love of God.
And I was and it's filthy, of course. And I'm reading it in this hospital, whispering all the swear words.
Well,
She's
there's a lot of swearing in it, but I'd like to think they are the patois of the working class.
Oh, it's a beautiful book.
That's the best I can dignify it. I'm not someone who ever goes below the waist. I'm not someone who ever thinks that, I mean, despite last week during the England game, that the swearing is the thing. I mean, it's just it is the patois of the working class.
What did the Australian website describe you as? There's that Australian website.
There was a website last week after the England game, and I felt the England game deeply, and it said, "This is a master of swearing, a curse guru at the peak of his powers." And that's if you follow me on Twitter. I put on 12,000 Twitter followers that night.
Just for swearing about football?
12,000 Twitter followers.
Fantastic. When is the book coming out? How far are you into it?
It's a work in progress.
Well done.
But the thing is, this book is the third in the series, and this deals with when I got cancer and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh God, but I'm trying to make it the funniest book on cancer that's ever been written, and I think it is.
Yeah.
But equally, because there's other things in the way we're doing the second series of Cradle to Grave, I'm doing other stuff, and it's not. I'm being squeamish about the contact matter, but it will be before Christmas. That's all I can say. So it should be out of bite in December. But originally the deadline was July. Then it's been moved to August. Then it went September. I'm saying Christmas. So that vague area of it. And but I think it's very, very funny. I'll say it's the funniest book ever written about having the virtually terminal cancer ever been written. Beautiful. There you go.
I look forward to it. Danny, I've got to go. It's so nice to talk to you at last.
Yeah, of course you have, mate. Thank you very much for asking me.
And listen, it's an absolute pleasure. Keep tweeting me those Monkeys links, and we'll speak again soon, mate. Take care. Yeah,
as you know, Ian, we are, few hear us happy heroes, but who knows what the future brings, and you, my friend, are the absolute best at it.
Oh, my God bless you, Danny.
No, you are. I think your audience know that. So thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Danny. Speak to you later on. Take care, mate. There we go. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? 0844 499 1000. So what are your views on Brexit?
Talk Radio.
Join the Talk Nation.
Dial up and talk radio.
That's Danny Baker. That was amazing.
Churchy, I can't do it.
See, Radio Fell pissed me off. They've had 2 more digs at me.
It's embarrassing, okay, but I just can't leave the drive.
That was delightful. Well, there's a special pod.
If you're hit by an uninsured...